Welcome to our YouTube video series on employment law, focusing on matters pertaining to employee payroll. My name is Christopher Neufeld of Neufeld Legal, and in this particular video, we look at the employer's obligation to properly report and pay all required aspects required of the applicable employment standards legislation by looking at the recent decision of Justice Edward P. Belobaba in Cunningham versus RBC Dominion Securities. The case emanates from what we currently perceive as an all too common problem with Canadian payroll, and that is the failure of employers to precisely follow the applicable employment standards legislation, which can cause serious reporting issues and underpayments to impacted employees. As background to the court's determinations, the defendant RBC Dominion Securities had agreed that employment standards legislation did define wages to include commissions, and as the employer, RBC Dominion Securities was statutorily required to pay its commission employees not only their wages, that is, their earned commissions, but also a statutorily prescribed separate and additional amount for vacation and statutory holidays. RBC Dominion Securities also agreed that the employment standards legislation required that the calculation of these amounts be recorded and provided to the employee. This led to a major point of dispute that Justice Belobaba had to resolve, with his words thereon being highly instructive as to who bears responsibility for the reporting and computation of payroll, with the onus falling squarely upon the employer. Quote, "The problem here is that no such information was ever provided to the wholly or partly commissioned employees. The commissioned employees received regular and standardized earnings statements and pay stubs detailing their earnings and deductions, but no information as statutorily required about the calculation and amount of the additional vacation or public holiday pay component. The commissioned employees could not determine from their earnings statements, pay stubs, or any other information provided to them by the defendant whether they were being paid any additional amount for vacation or public holiday pay." Quote, "The defendant admits that it may have breached the recording and reporting requirements of the employment standards legislation. Nonetheless, argues the defendant, this motion for certification should be dismissed for at least two reasons. One, the onus is on the employee to provide some evidence that she was not paid the statutory entitlement to vacation and public holiday pay, and there is no such evidence here. And two, in any event, there is no basis for the claim because all commissions continue to be paid in full while the commissioned employee was on vacation or off on a public holiday, without any reduction or adjustment." Quote, "There is a short answer to both of these points. First, the onus is not on the employee to show that she wasn't paid vacation or public holiday pay. The burden is on the employer to prove that these statutorily required payments were recorded, reported, and made." Citing École Notre Dame du Mont Carmel versus Nadine Thompson and Director of Employment Standards, as well as Kinch versus Deferent Communications, Inc. At the hearing, the defendant eventually accepted this obvious proposition and did not try to argue otherwise. Second, whether or not all commissions continue to be paid in full while the employee was on vacation or off on a public holiday without any reduction or adjustment is at this point of the litigation a boldly stated assertion with no supporting detail or explication, and in any event goes to the merits and should not be decided on a certification motion. End quote. The court's decision reiterates the onus is squarely placed on the employer, with the failure being entirely improper, and as we've come to realize in our own legal work, that improper reporting is a solid precursor for employee underpayments as they reflect the use of improper payroll processes and calculations. Payroll reporting is the responsibility of the employer, and when it is not done correctly, there are serious concerns about what had been transpiring with an employee's pay that demands appropriate attention, as the payroll issues are all too often adversely impact the employee. Thank you.